All right. Today's IGTV is going to be a little bit longer than the 15 minutes that I like to traditionally stick to, and that's because it's kind of a complex subject. How to get emotional photos. So when I say emotional, I don't necessarily mean those like really quiet, dramatic photos that I tend to be drawn to and tend to kind of shows up in my work. I just mean a photo that you can emotionally connect to. Most of the time, these photos are much more candid looking, and the couple looks really relaxed and comfortable. And I think that a lot of photographers that get into this, photographing couples get into this rivet where they are trying to come up with poses and they're in the middle of a shoot and they can't come up with anything. They kind of go blank, or the couple is just so seemingly uncomfortable with what's going on, or it just feels very much like a photo shoot and not like an experience for the couple. And it kind of strips the experience from being truly enjoyable and fun to a photo shoot. So I want to stress that my way is not the only way. I am not a expert in this, but I do feel like I have tried and trued a few different methods. I've tried memorizing poses. I have tried doing the whole prompting thing. I've tried doing like the permission posing thing. I've tried it all, and I feel like there's some elements from everything that you can kind of take away from that and make your own. So I have some suggestions for photographers out there, and I also have some suggestions for couples out there. And I truly believe in all of what I'm about to say, that it is 100% a collaborative process between the photographer and the couple to create really beautiful imagery. And I think that it doesn't just begin the moment that the couple shows up and the photographer shows up to the shoot. The process, the collaboration needs to start at the beginning when the couple first inquires and hires a photographer. So this video is good if you are a couple about to pay a photographer for photos and you want them to be really just you. You want to look at your pictures and you want to think, wow, like that's us, and that's only us, and we remember like, oh, look at me laughing, that's when you said this, or that's when we were doing this, and you want to attach those photos to an experience, to a memory. This video is for you. If you are a photographer who is tired of drawing blanks at shoots and you are feeling disconnected from your work and you're not really liking the process of just telling your couples to do this particular pose, and you're feeling like your work is looking really sterile, this is for you. If you're a videographer and you are looking for a product to start delivering videos that are look more cinematic and look more emotional, and you can really connect with the couple that's on the other side of the camera, they're not just doing some motion that you ask them to do, then this video is for you. So I think that there's a little bit of something that everybody can get out of this. Like I said in the beginning, I'm not like a one-size-fits-all expert on this. I know for a fact that there are other photographers out there who have posing guides, who have guides for photographers, suggestions for couples, etc., to create really emotional photographs. But I think that a lot of the resources that are out there have one thing in mind, and that is excelling the photographer or videographer and not so much excelling the experience for the couple. And I think that the two really go hand in hand. If you are a photographer and your couple leaves a session feeling like what the heck just happened, like feeling totally disconnected from the entire experience, then you're missing something. And if you are a couple and you've just left your session and you feel disconnected from your photos, or you just feel like they just look really stiff and sterile, then there's something missing there. So without further ado, I'm just going to dive right into my list of suggestions. It's not really, I guess I shouldn't call it a list. It's not really a list as much as a methodology or approach that I have been using as of late. And when I say as of late, I mean within the past couple of months. And it's just led to, like, it's propelled my work from feeling very much like common and generic to something that feels much more me. And I'm getting really good feedback from my couples that they're saying their photographs just look very natural. I'm getting good feedback from my family on Instagram, my community on Instagram, telling me, leaving me DMs all the time, like, wow, your work like just looks so much better. Like, how do you get your couple so comfortable and so like just relaxed looking? So this is how I do it. So starting way back when I first started photographing couples, I think that's kind of where a lot of photographers start, is they start with literally like a list of poses, and they'll even write them down on like a sticky note and bring them to a shoot, or take a picture of the list on the back of the camera. And the problem with the shot list is that whenever a photographer, just a little heads up, I'm going to kind of be going back and forth talking to photographers and couples back and forth in this video, so just bear with me. I think that whenever a photographer tells a couple to do something, to like mold their bodies in a certain way and to create a pose, what they're doing is they're putting themselves into the image. So I'm not going to tell you that posing is bad. Like, I actually think that in the right place and time, posing can be very good. It can be very creative. You're creating artwork. But for the purpose of this video, I want to stress that what happens when you pose your couples and you manipulate their bodies in a very specific maneuver, you're stripping the photo from an emotional connection. And because the photographer is putting so much of themselves into the image, it's really no longer an authentic image of a couple. And for the purpose of this video, that's what we're after, right? Like, I'm not telling you how to create really creative work. I'm kind of teaching you how to create work, or not teaching you, but suggesting on how you can create work that is authentic and true to the couple. And the more you put yourself into the image, the less of your couple is in the image. And I think that this is a natural, like, there's good and bad parts of this. I think that first and foremost, photographers are creatives. And the purpose, like, the reason we're in this work is because we love creating. So there's almost like this element of signature that we like to put in all of the work that we create. There's like this magical touch. So I actually recently noticed this in my own branding, just like the colors and the fonts that I've chosen for my branding are very much representative, like very much mirror me as a human. So like lots of light beiges and golds and greens. And I have like really light pinky skin and straw colored hair, and I have green eyes. And so like me as a human, I'm very beige and green. And I might be loud and authoritative right now because I'm literally just talking to one person. But when I'm in a room full of people, I'm very quiet and very soft-spoken, and I'm constantly told that I don't talk loud enough. So I notice in all the fonts that I chose are like really dainty and quiet. So I mean, that's just like one stupid example, but I really do believe that in each artist's work, there is an element of them, and that's okay. I'm not telling an artist, like, I'm not telling all wedding photographers that if you want to create emotional work, you need to completely strip yourself and like not communicate with your couple at all, because I don't believe that. But just understand that that underlying like element or degree of yourself that you put into your work is going to be different for every artist. So it's nearly impossible to replicate the work that I'm doing and make it your, like, you have to make your work your own. And you have to, like couples, you have to find a photographer whose signature really complements your personalities, because I don't believe that that the photographer should completely strip themselves from your work. I think that you need to find a photographer whose approach blends really well and is a really beautiful ingredient to the recipe of this final product that you're trying to achieve. You want a photographer whose personality complements your own, whose approach complements the approach that you want in your photography experience. So I hope that helps. The second suggestion that I want to make is that, kind of what I said at the beginning of this video, a photo shoot with a couple needs to be a collaborative process if you want to get emotional imagery. You need to work together. Photographers, you can't ask 100% from your couples, and couples, you can't ask 100% from your photographers. Like, right off the bat, I know, like, and I've been on the other side of the camera, like, I know what it's like. You show up as like a couple, you show up and your instinct is, okay, I'm just going to stand here until my photographer tells me what to do. Like, you go blank. You don't want it. Like, couples feel like they aren't allowed to just jump in and take charge of the shoot. Some couples are better at this than others, but I do believe that first like couple minutes in most shoots, the couple's literally just standing there waiting for the photographer to instruct them somehow. And if that uncomfortable situation's happening, it is without a doubt the photographer's fault. And let me explain. Photographers, when a couple reaches out to you and hires you to do photos, if you want really emotional imagery and your approach is very much the approach where you are allowing your couple to take the steering wheel and you want them to just kind of go unhinged and untethered and just roam around and pose themselves, and you really don't want to tell them what to do very much, you need to communicate that with them before they even inquire. Like, you need to write about this all over your website. You need to talk about it on your social media platforms. You need to make it so obvious that your approach is so organic and candid and so photojournalistic that the couples who are inquiring with you feel comfortable with that. Because if your couple shows up and their expectation is that they have, like, they're going to just sit there and wait for you to tell them what to do, but your approach is that you want your couple to kind of take charge and pose themselves and like be natural, then there's like this like oil and water situation going on where you're both waiting for each other to take charge. And as a business owner, as somebody who's being hired to provide a service, you need to be so blatantly ugly transparent about your process. That way you're attracting the couples who want to hire a photographer with your approach. And I hope that makes sense. So you need to show this in your marketing, show behind the scenes videos, like bring a friend with you, obviously with the couple's permission, bring a friend with you to a photo shoot and have them take like behind the scenes video. You could hire and do like a branding video, talk about it on your Instagram, make a highlight, your approach, make a page on your website about your approach, make a blog post. Make it so stupidly obvious what your approach and what working with you looks like so that your couples know exactly what to do. And then after they inquire, you need to, again, kind of tell them again and remind them of your approach by making like a guide and sending it to your couples. And in that guide can be a video that you create, even like on a webcam. You can go into Canva or Photoshop and make a guide of what it's like to work with you. Whatever it is, it can just be a really nice email that's really well written. Whatever it is, you need to address those pain points of your couple and let them know, listen, like if you really want these really stunning, emotional photographs and you want them to be really real and candid, I need you to be vulnerable. I need you to open up. You need to remind them after they book with you of what your process looks and feels like so that when they show up, they know exactly what to expect. They can show up and rather than standing there waiting for you to tell them what to do, they can just dive right in and they know exactly like, okay, this photographer wants us to move the whole time. This photographer wants us to be completely ourselves. So we're going to do it. Let's just be ourselves. And I can tell you, like, since I've started sending guides and being more transparent about my process, when I show up to the shoot, the couples are like, okay, so should we start kind of just walking over here? And I'm like, yeah, it's exactly what I was going to tell you to do. Like, you're one step ahead of me, you know exactly what to do. And it's so much easier. So, transparency is so important. And couples, you need to be transparent as well. Like, if you're shopping for a photographer and you know that you guys are really introverted and really shy, or maybe you've never had your picture taken professionally before and you just are really nervous, like, you need to hire a photographer. Before you even hire them, you need to ask these questions, like, what does your approach look like? We're really nervous. We've never been photographed before. Like, what can we expect? Ask those questions. Have a phone call. Meet up in person. Read reviews. Ask past clients what their experience was like. Like, you need to do your research so that you're hiring somebody whose approach feels really comfortable to be around. That way, when you do show up to the shoot, you and your partner can just be 100% yourselves and you don't have to force anything. And it's just like a really symbiotic relationship. You guys just really jive during the shoot. So both people need to be really transparent, ask questions, do your research. But like I said in the beginning, if the couple shows up and they like leave and they're like, whoa, like what was that? We were not expecting that. That is not on the couples. That's usually on the photographer's side. Photographers, you just need to be really stupidly obvious about what your approach looks like. So once everybody knows each other, we're all on the same page, everybody's transparent, I think that the next step or the next approach that photographers really need to adhere to get these really emotional photos is setting the tone. So if you are naturally a very bubbly, goofy, colorful person, you wear really colorful clothing, you have really like loud, bubbly voice, you use really bubbly lingo, you need to no matter what your personality is really, but you need to show that so that when the couple shows up at the shoot and they're expecting somebody who's like really calm because they really want those beautiful calm pictures, but then there's somebody in their face that's like really, really bubbly, they're going to be kind of like jarred a little bit. So if you are somebody who's more loud, then you're showing your personality, you're probably going to attract the couples who want that, and vice versa. If you're somebody who's really quiet, you need to show that so that you're attracting the couples. Everybody needs to just be really transparent about their personalities. But photographers, you need to set the tone for the shoot. So you're transparent at the awareness phase, you're transparent at the sales phase, you need to be transparent during the session as well. And you need to set the tone with everything, with the clothes that you're wearing, with the music that you're playing, with the tone of your voice and the way you're speaking. If you're talking really loud and you're laughing the whole time, it's going to be it's going to be that much more difficult for your couple to get into a really like quiet mood. But if the couple's having a lot of fun, everyone's having fun, like build up that suspense and have it be a really fun shoot, you can do that as well. But whatever the couple is hoping for and whatever you're trying to achieve, you need to, as a photographer, you need to use everything from sound to colors to pitch of your voice, everything you can to set the tone for the shoot. That way the couple feels really at ease and really comfortable. I actually bring, I don't know where it is at the moment, but I bring a small little speaker, and I have a couple playlists that I've prepared that I've downloaded to my phone that I can play. Even if the service is really bad on the Bluetooth, but I also allow, like, the first thing I say when I show up to a session is like, besides like, how are you doing? But it's like, I have a Bluetooth speaker if you guys want to like put on a playlist, and I've already emailed them and told them if they want to prepare a playlist for the shoot, they can, but that's one way I set the tone. I change the tone of my voice. I'll wear like different color clothing. So I'm like literally not like this bright, vibrant person in their face. Everything you can do to set the tone, do it. So you've educated each other, you've been transparent with each other, you've sent questionnaires. Phone call is really important, and I kind of talked about that before, to get to know each other, hear each other's voice. So again, couples, like when they show up to a shoot, they're expecting this very particular person who they're going to be working with. That's the person they have like in their minds. That's who they're expecting. So I do think that a phone call, or even better, like a FaceTime before the session, just to talk about where the session's going to be, what it's going to be like, what your expectations are. But even more than that, like just talking and getting to know each other on a human level is so important. Questionnaires are great. I love questionnaires. I use them a lot throughout my business. But I think with questionnaires is all you're asking for and all you're really getting out of questionnaires is data. You're not getting the human element. So when you're asking questions, and when I say questions, I mean like literally just getting to know each other. Like, what do you do for work? What do you do for fun? Like that kind of stuff. When you are having that conversation on a phone call or in FaceTime, you can actually see their facial expressions and you can hear the tone in their voice, and you can hear the moments where they get really excited or maybe pause for a minute and get apprehensive. You can see in their faces like who's the more dominant one, who's the more outgoing one, who's more introverted, who's like the pack leader of the couple. That way, when you show up to the shoot, you can kind of think to yourself, oh, when was a moment where they were like really happy and smiling and looking at each other? And you can almost predict exactly when that's going to happen again. The way that, she looked at her partner when I asked this particular question, I want to see that and capture that in a photograph. So maybe we bring up that conversation, whatever we were talking about during the shoot. So I hope that makes sense. But I think that the video call or the phone call is maybe one of the most important ways to prepare for a session, because you're getting to know a human. Couples, you're getting to know your photographers and what they sound like, so you know what to expect at the shoot. And photographers, you're getting to know your couple and how they react with each other and how they look at each other, so that you know exactly what you're working with when you show up to the shoot as well. So again, you're kind of noticing a theme here as I ramble, but we're breaking down these expectations and we are making everything so stupidly transparent so that we know exactly what to expect when we show up to the shoot. So we've prepared. I just rambled on and on. I hope you got something out of all that for the shoot. Now, once the actual shoot is here, what are the approaches that we can use to create really emotional imagery? So there's a couple things here, but I think the biggest thing is that when we photographers show up with a list of poses, again, I said this in the beginning of the video, what we're doing is we're putting ourselves into the imagery and we're stripping that possibility for really raw emotions. And I don't care who you are, but when you're scrolling through Pinterest or Instagram or whatever, and you see a picture that was candid, you don't even know the background story of how or when that picture was taken, but it just looks so real. It's probably because it was. There's just a part of our brains that can pick up on subtle cues and subtle, like, I don't know if you guys have ever watched like The Mentalist or like there's a part of our brain that's biologically tuned in to facial expressions and the tiny little we're not even aware of it, but the tiny little nuances and how our face moves and how we raise our eyebrows and how we use our hands when we speak, how we play with our hair, how we fidget. Like there's a part of our brain that picks up on those subtle social cues. We can tell exactly what that person is feeling. And when you take a picture of that raw, real, like thing that's happening, what you're taking a picture of is real emotion. It can be laughing, it can be crying, it can be somewhere in between, but it's real. And we notice when it's real and we feel so much more connected to the photo when it's real. So to do that, I think that we need to take a step back from this idea of posing. And we need to approach the session with this open mindset of a session that's based on experience and not centered around the idea of getting photos. So once you strip a photo shoot altogether of the camera, like just for a minute, take the idea of the photo shoot and just throw the camera away. What are we trying to achieve from the photo shoot? Like, what's the purpose behind the photo shoot? Every photo shoot has a purpose. And even if it is like an engagement session and we're celebrating engagement or whatever, there's an underlying purpose. There's a reason this couple hired a photographer in the first place. And you need to focus on that and not the product of the photography. And I think that in itself is going to propel a much more emotional product because you aren't focused on composition and color and all of these technical artsy things. You're now focused on what's right in front of you and the emotions around that day and the purpose of that day. So what you're doing is you're approaching the session with a story in mind as opposed to, like I said, the product. So photographers, before you show up to a shoot to get this emotional imagery, you need to think of yourself like, or even ask the couple, like, why are we doing this photo shoot? Like, you need to create a storyline. Story does not have to be complex. It does not have to be a novel. It can be something as simple as they're celebrating an engagement. They have promised that they're going to love and take care of each other for the rest of their lives, and they want to celebrate that. Like, that can be a story. That's enough. But you need to walk into the session not with like, oh, there's going to be a waterfall, so I want to line them up perfectly under the waterfall. Like, throw away the idea of composition. Throw the idea away of color theory. Throw away the idea of I need to get some far away and some medium and some close up because that's what looks good on my Pinterest or on my Instagram. Like, throw away all notions of composition and technicalities and remember the purpose, the reason why you're there, and create a storyline and go into the shoot with that. And then couples, same thing. Like, don't go into this experience, whatever it may be, an elopement, an engagement session, anniversary session, whatever. Don't go into this experience with this idea that you're just doing this for pictures. Like, there's a reason you just spent hundreds or maybe thousands of dollars on somebody to come, some stranger to show up and take your photo. Like, there's a deeper reason there. And what is that reason? And like I said, you and your photographer can have a conversation about this. You can fill out, I don't know if the photographer has a questionnaire or not, but you can like have that candid conversation maybe during your call or, that check-in before your photo shoot. Have that conversation of what the purpose of the shoot is. Like, what is the story of the day? And then when you actually show up to the shoot, address that story and have that story in mind for every element of the shoot. So I'm trying to think of like an example story. So we'll just go with that engagement. Like, they're celebrating. So maybe the story, the concept of the shoot is celebration. So what do you think of when you think of the word celebration? You think of excitement. You think of joy. You think of resilience. So anything that sparks that emotion or that word celebration during the shoot, the photographer should be capturing. So smile, like hands, the way that hands might be connecting to show joy, a smile and how it might be showing joy. The articles, the textiles on the clothing that you wear maybe are joyful. Anything that might just trigger the feeling of joy. Sunrises, sunsets, the way that a drink sparkles in the sunlight if they're having like a picnic or something. That is how you create an emotional image gallery, is by taking the story and making that the center of the shoot and not the concept of photos in general. So with that, couples, you need to keep moving. You need to be vulnerable. Hopefully by this point, you have established a good relationship with your photographer, that you feel comfortable. Your photographer is playing music and the tone of their voice is really good. They look and feel like the person you met, you know them. The tone of their, whatever they're doing, meets the tone of the shoot. They are aware of the purpose of these photographs. Photographers, same thing. You know exactly what to expect of each other. Hopefully by this point, you've established a good enough relationship. You've communicated with each other enough that vulnerability comes easy. But couples, you need to be willing to collaborate and work like symbiotically with your photographer if you want these really emotional photos. You have to let your boundaries down a little bit. You have to throw away this idea of looking Pinterest perfect and Instagram perfect and just focus on the story and not the product. And photographers, you need to throw away this idea of, oh, I need everything to be compositionally perfect, or I need the colors to be perfect, or oh no, like I told her not to wear lime green, but she's wearing lime green. Like throw away all of that and just focus on the reason you're there. And then you can worry about composition and color and all of that later while you're editing, and you can, adjust things accordingly. You can crop things out, you can turn pictures, you can, do what you need to do. But I feel like if the emotions are real and the moment is real, even if the photo is not compositionally perfect, the couple and the viewer of the photo is going to look at it and is going to feel so attached to it that it doesn't even, like, the composition doesn't matter. Like, you're not, hopefully not in this to win awards or, like, I don't know, teach composition or like be technically perfect. You're in this to create a product that that couple really, really loves and feels connected to. And that's kind of like the whole purpose of why you're doing this in the first place. So, yeah, I think I covered it. A couple of other tips, I guess, is just like movement. Obviously, just keeping your couple moving the entire time. Tell your couples that, pretend I'm pretend I'm filming you as opposed to taking still shots, can really help. Prompting your couple with the story of the day can be really helpful. So this is something I've tried a couple of times and it works really well, is I'll just stop and just like, once we've warmed up, it's like, okay, for just a minute, I don't want to pose you. I want you to just focus on each other and the reason that we're here and just communicate that with your bodies. I don't want you to speak. I want you to just use your hands, your lips, whatever you need to use to communicate the feelings, like the reason that we're here, communicate that with one another. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to go way back. I'm going to give you guys some time, and then I'm going to slowly work my way in. I'm not here. You're focusing on each other. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about looking perfect. Just celebrate the reason we're here. And then I will literally go back like 30 feet, 50 feet, whatever my space allows me to, and I will just start big, start wide, and work my way in. And that prompt alone, you can do that like 3 or 4 times during the shoot and get so much variety that you have literally not told them to do a single thing. They're communicating. If you see something you like, you're like, yes, I love that. Can we try that again? That's fine. But you're not telling them what to do at all. All you're doing is taking the purpose of the day and like recalibrating everything and recalibrating everyone and putting it right in the center, so that everyone's focusing on the purpose and not the composition of the photo. And I think that in itself can be really, really helpful. So if you're doing that, you're keeping everybody moving. You are being so stupidly explicit about your approach. Couples, you're being so obvious about your purpose for the photo shoot, and you're communicating that with each other open-endedly. I think that in the end, you're going to create something really, really, really incredible. And you've probably noticed that in this entire posing shoot or this entire posing episode, not once did I tell you how to pose your couple. It's all about communication, 100%. It's all about connecting, experiencing, and communicating. That is how you create emotional photos. So I hope this is helpful. I would actually really love, like, photographers, if you go into a shoot and you kind of apply some of these methodologies, I would really, really love to hear your feedback. It doesn't have to be in the comments. You can message me. It's something that's an approach that, like I said, I've tried for the past couple of months, and it has completely changed my photography. It's not the most creative way. This is not me telling you how to create creative imagery. It's definitely not creative, but it's real. And every couple who has received their photos from this approach really, really loves them and has a really good connection with them. And I think that in most of my work, that's all that matters. So I hope this is helpful. Anybody has any suggestions or maybe comments on anything I've said, please leave them below. I love for these IGTVs to be a conversation and a place to learn and discover, and not just me preaching, not just me preaching and telling you how to do things. It's absolutely not what I want out of these. So start a conversation, ask questions, and if there's any part of this you want me to elaborate on, let me know, and I can always make another episode. But thanks. Say bye to Millie.